The chemo drip had been running for 3 hours when Marcus walked into my hospital room, still wearing his tennis whites from the country club. He glanced at the four-pole with the casual disinterest he reserved for inconvenient realities. "You're really milking this whole cancer thing, aren't you?" he said, settling into the visitor's chair with the confident posture of someone who'd never questioned his own health. "Mom's been worried sick, but I told her you're just being dramatic." I watched the platinum-based chemicals flow into my bloodstream. The same compounds I'd helped develop during my decade at the FDA's Oncology Center of Excellence before switching to regulatory consulting. Marcus knew nothing about my professional background, despite it funding his entire medical career. "Everyone gets tired sometimes," he continued, scrolling through his phone. "You just need to push through it like the rest of us." The irony was suffocating. Marcus ran the Westfield Wellness Clinic, a boutique facility specializing in innovative cancer treatments for wealthy patients. His success story had captivated our family for 3 years, the brilliant young doctor building his empire while his sister struggled to find direction. What they didn't know was that I owned 70% of his clinic through a shell company, having provided the initial $2.8 million in regulatory compliance funding when traditional investors balked at his questionable treatment protocols. "Speaking of pushing through," Marcus said, his voice brightening with that particular enthusiasm he reserved for discussing his achievements, "the Medical Excellence Awards ceremony is next month. I'm receiving the Innovation in Oncology Prize." The Innovation Prize. For treatments I'd designed and protocols I'd written, submitted under his medical license because my regulatory consulting firm couldn't directly practice medicine. The bitter irony of my own cancer diagnosis while developing therapies bearing his name wasn't lost on me. "That's wonderful," I managed, my voice hoarse from the anti-nausea medications. "The ceremony's on Thursday the 18th, he continued, already mentally composing his acceptance speech. "Black tie event, all the major medical journals will be there. Real career-making stuff." Thursday the 18th. My radiation therapy appointment. The one I'd scheduled 6 weeks ago, the one he'd known about since my diagnosis 3 months earlier. "I was hoping you could skip your doctor's appointment that day," Marcus added casually, as if requesting I cancel lunch instead of life-saving treatment. "Mom wants the whole family there and you know how she gets about appearances." The casual cruelty took my breath away. "That's my radiation treatment, Marcus. Stage 3 lymphoma doesn't reschedule for awards ceremonies." He waved dismissively. "You've got plenty of other appointments. One missed session won't matter. This is my night, Emma. The biggest moment of my career." His career. Built on my regulatory expertise, my clinical trial designs, my connections at the FDA that had fast-tracked his treatment approvals. The Westfield Wellness Clinic existed because I'd navigated the Byzantine regulatory requirements while he focused on networking and media appearances. "Besides," Marcus continued, his voice taking on that particular tone of authority he'd perfected in medical school, "half of these cancer patients are just hypochondriacs looking for attention. You're young, you're strong, you'll be fine." The comment hung in the air like toxic radiation. From a man who'd built his reputation treating cancer patients, dismissing his own sister's diagnosis as attention-seeking felt particularly grotesque. "The family thinks you're being a bit dramatic about this whole thing," he added, apparently unaware of how devastating his words sounded. "Dad said you've always been prone to exaggeration." That, who'd spent last Christmas bragging about Marcus's innovative clinic while I sat through my first round of chemotherapy, secretly funding the research that made his son's success possible. "Maybe you should consider therapy," Marcus suggested helpfully. "All this negativity can't be good for your immune system. Positive thinking is half the battle with cancer." Positive thinking. From someone who'd never felt his lymph nodes swelling like marbles under his skin, never experienced the bone-deep exhaustion that made climbing stairs feel like scaling mountains, never watched his reflection disappear strand by strand in the mirror. "I need to focus on getting better," I said quietly. "Exactly." Marcus brightened, apparently misinterpreting my resignation as agreement. "Skip the doom and gloom medical stuff for one night. Come celebrate my achievement instead. It'll be good for you." Build up. The family dinner the following Sunday provided the perfect stage for Marcus's latest performance. Mom had prepared his favorite meal, lamb with rosemary, the same dish she'd served when he'd graduated medical school, when he'd opened his practice, when he'd been featured in Medical Today magazine. "We're so proud of Marcus," she announced to the assembled relatives, her voice carrying the particular pride reserved for successful children. "The Innovation in Oncology Award. Imagine. Our boy revolutionizing cancer treatment." Uncle Paul raised his wine glass. "To Marcus. Saving lives and making a difference." The toast echoed around the table while I pushed food around my plate, my appetite destroyed by the steroids they'd prescribed to manage treatment side effects. 20 pounds lost in 2 months, but no one seemed to notice my gaunt appearance next to Marcus's healthy glow. "Emma's feeling a bit under the weather," Dad explained to Aunt Linda, who'd asked why I looked so thin. "She's been making a big fuss about some fatigue issues." Making a fuss? About stage 3 cancer that had required emergency surgery when a tumor pressed against my superior vena cava, nearly cutting off blood flow to my heart. "The thing about Emma," Marcus said, cutting into his lamb with surgical precision, "is she's always been prone to hypochondria. Remember when she convinced herself she had mono in college? Turned out to be a hangover." The family chuckled at the familiar story, one that had grown more dramatic with each retelling. What they'd forgotten was that I actually did have mono, a fact confirmed by blood tests I'd paid for myself when the campus health center dismissed my symptoms. "Some people just have lower pain tolerance," Cousin Sarah added helpfully. "Emma's always been sensitive." Sensitive. The word followed me through family gatherings like a diagnosis in itself. Too sensitive for criticism, too sensitive for honest feedback, too sensitive to handle normal stress that everyone else managed just fine. "Speaking of sensitivity," Marcus continued, warming to his favorite topic, "you should see some of my patients. Real cancer fighters. Incredible attitudes, never complaining, always positive. It's inspiring." Real cancer fighters. Unlike his sister, apparently, whose cancer was somehow less legitimate because she'd mentioned feeling tired during chemotherapy. "Marcus has such a gift for helping people," Mom gushed. "His patients adore him. Last week, Mrs. Henderson sent a thank you card saying he saved her life." Mrs. Henderson, whose experimental treatment protocol I'd designed specifically for her genetic markers after analyzing her tumor sequencing data. Marcus had administered the therapy, but the scientific breakthrough had emerged from my regulatory consulting work with 3 pharmaceutical companies. "The Innovation Award recognizes doctors who push boundaries," Marcus explained to the younger cousins, his voice taking on that lecturing tone he'd perfected for medical conferences. "Not everyone has the vision to see beyond traditional approaches." Vision. The treatment protocols he'd be honored for had originated from my analysis of European clinical trials that American oncologists had dismissed as too experimental. I'd spent 18 months navigating FDA approval processes while Marcus focused on building his brand. "Emma should really come to the ceremony," Aunt Linda suggested. "It would be good for her to see something positive instead of focusing on her health problems all the time." Health problems. As if cancer were a lifestyle choice rather than a cellular rebellion that had turned my own immune system into a battlefield. "I told her the same thing," Marcus agreed. "But she's scheduled some medical appointment that night. I keep telling her, one missed appointment won't matter, but my award ceremony is once in a lifetime." The casual dismissal of radiation therapy as a medical appointment revealed everything about Marcus's priorities. His career advancement mattered more than his sister's survival. "Maybe the doctors could reschedule Emma's treatment," Mom suggested hopefully. "Family should come first, especially for such an important occasion." Family first. Unless you were the family member actually fighting for your life while your brother collected accolades for treatments you'd developed during your own battle with the disease they were meant to cure. Revelation. The revelation came through Dr. Margaret Thornfield, Chief Medical Officer of the State Health Department, who arrived at Westfield Wellness Clinic on Monday morning with a team of federal inspectors and a briefcase full of regulatory violations. "Dr. Westfield," she announced as Marcus emerged from his office, his confidence faltering at the sight of official badges, "we're here regarding serious concerns about your facility's compliance status and treatment protocols." The waiting room fell silent, wealthy patients suddenly very interested in their magazines as federal agents photographed treatment areas and examined patient files. "There seems to be some confusion," Marcus said, his voice tight with the particular strain of someone whose world was shifting beneath his feet. "Our facility maintains full regulatory compliance." Dr. Thornfield consulted her tablet, her expression professionally neutral. According to FDA records, your clinic's operational license has been suspended pending investigation into unauthorized experimental treatments. That's impossible, Marcus replied, though his voice carried less certainty now. I received innovation in oncology recognition. We're pioneers in the field. Yes, about that award, Dr. Thornfield continued, adjusting her glasses. The nomination was submitted by Dr. Emma Westfield, your sister. She's listed as the primary researcher behind your treatment protocols. The color drained from Marcus's face like water from a broken dam. Dr. Emma Westfield, the inspector continued, consulting her notes, senior regulatory consultant with the FDA's Oncology Center, primary author of the clinical trial designs your facility has been implementing, and, according to corporate filings, majority owner of Westfield Wellness through Meridian Medical Holdings. Marcus's mouth opened and closed silently, resembling a fish struggling for oxygen in increasingly toxic waters. The innovative treatments you've been recognized for, Dr. Thornfield explained with the patience of someone delivering frequently devastating news, were developed by your sister during her concurrent lymphoma treatment. She submitted them under your medical license because regulatory consultants cannot directly practice medicine. The waiting room had become completely silent except for the soft clicking of inspection equipment and the rustling of documentation. However, Dr. Thornfield's voice grew more serious. Dr. Emma Westfield has filed a formal complaint regarding unauthorized modifications to her treatment protocols, patient safety violations, and misrepresentation of research authorship. She spread documents across Marcus's reception desk like tarot cards predicting an unfortunate future. Your facility's license is suspended immediately. All experimental treatments must cease. Patients will be transferred to certified oncology centers for continued care. Marcus found his voice, though it emerged as barely more than a whisper. Emma owns the clinic? 70% equity stake, Dr. Thornfield confirmed. She also holds the regulatory approvals, research patents, and FDA relationships that made your operation possible. The irony was exquisite. The sister he'd dismissed as a hypochondriac had been the architect of his entire professional success while battling the very disease he claimed expertise in treating. Resolution. The clinic closed permanently within 72 hours. Marcus's medical license underwent review by the state board, ultimately resulting in suspension pending completion of ethics training and supervised practice requirements. The Innovation in Oncology Award was rescinded when the Medical Excellence Committee discovered the research authorship misrepresentation. The ceremony proceeded without him, his empty chair a visible reminder that recognition requires authentic achievement. His wealthy patients, suddenly aware their revolutionary treatments had been developed by a consultant battling cancer herself, filed malpractice suits alleging misrepresentation and inadequate care. The legal settlements consumed his remaining assets within 6 months. Mom stopped mentioning Marcus's medical career at family gatherings, the subject becoming as toxic as the chemotherapy drugs I continued receiving. My radiation treatments proceeded on schedule, uninterrupted by award ceremonies or family obligations. The most satisfying moment came when Marcus called from his studio apartment in Queens, where he'd moved after losing his house to legal judgments. Emma, I didn't know you owned the clinic. His voice carried a humility that had been absent for 3 years. Nobody told me you were that successful. Through my penthouse windows, purchased with proceeds from licensing my treatment protocols to pharmaceutical companies, Central Park stretched green and infinite. I was always successful, I replied quietly. You just preferred a different narrative. But the cancer, I thought you were exaggerating. I was dying, Marcus, while developing treatments that built your reputation. The silence stretched between us, heavy with years of dismissed symptoms and casual cruelty disguised as medical authority. Is there any way to work things out? He asked finally. Family is family. Family members don't usually schedule award ceremonies during each other's cancer treatment, I said, watching my driver arrive to take me to the oncology center where I now served on the board of directors. The line went quiet except for his breathing. My protocols are being used in clinical trials worldwide now, I added before disconnecting. Real cancer fighters deserve better than someone who thinks the disease is a matter of attitude. Some lessons in medical ethics, like chemotherapy, required precise dosing to be effective. My lymphoma reached complete remission 6 months later. Marcus remained in professional quarantine, learning that innovation requires more than borrowed brilliance and that family loyalty shouldn't be a one-way street. The treatments I'd developed while fighting for my own life continued saving others, just without my brother's name attached to the research.